Buongiorno everybody, I'm the Giovanni, and today we're gonna look at a replay from one of you. It's the Tales from the Herd, where your tales are heard. Giovanni made it funny. Oh boy. I apologize for nothing. I'm just a little tired today, and so I'm very silly. But welcome everyone to Tales from the Herd, where I'm taking one of you guys and I'm showing a really cool replay, or even more of your cool replays. And today we're taking a look at CaptainBluenose, who incidentally was also the star of Tales from the Herd #1. But he sent me such a great replay, and on top of that, it was in the Tirpitz. And I thought, hey, that's a great opportunity, because the Tirpitz is still pretty new, to look at a really good replay, seeing how I personally can't really produce amazing battleship replays just yet. I'm still learning, I'm still trying to get into battleships, something that you should see soon. And yeah, so I thought, why not show somebody who can actually do it? The only criticism I have about CaptainBluenose's game is that he gives way too much lead. But then again, I don't know, maybe this was one of his first games in the Tirpitz and he just wasn't used to how incredibly high velocity the shells are. Because, I mean, let's face it, that's something I had to get used to as well, and probably most people had to get used to. I mean, look at this. These ships are almost 18 kilometers away, and it takes him just over 9 seconds for his shells to get there. And they are so low velocity, they're so high velocity and low trajectory that they cannot get over this relatively small hill on the island. CaptainBluenose and his team spawned on hotspots. Now, on hotspots, sometimes teams are actually pretty good at coordinating, and the enemy team in this case was very good at coordinating, because both of their flanks decided to pincer the north spawn of CaptainBluenose's team. Now, he in chat asked his team if it was alright if everybody meets at A, basically trying the exact same thing. Sadly, it didn't quite work, and the northern half of CaptainBluenose's team got incredibly spooked and is basically retreating into the corner, which is the worst thing you can do on this map if your spawn is getting pincered, because there's just no escaping. And this Nagato, stationary in the cap circle, there's also no escaping for that guy. And so he loses half his hit points to CaptainBluenose's opening salvo. I don't know why this Nagato is just standing there taking it. I mean, there are 2 battleships and 2 cruisers here, all well within range, and just letting him have it, and he's just sitting there, just, you know, just not caring, not having a care in the world. I don't know, it's very silly. But yes, as you can see, the northern team now lost a cruiser. They did kill a cruiser and the carrier from the southern enemy flank. But it is just a question of time now, really. They have the entire enemy team surrounding them. They can't really angle themselves well against anyone, because even if they angle against someone, they're going to present broadside to someone else. It's a complete shit show. It's like shooting fish in a barrel. And that's really why, if you play on hotspots, and if as soon as you realize that the opposing team is pincering you, you have to immediately drive toward the flank that the other half of your team chose. So in this case, they all should have gone in the direction of A, and hard. They should have gone melee on those opposing ships, trying to persuade them to turn around, so that they can be pincered by your team. Because there is no other option on this map. You either counter pincer, you know, or just, you know, go into melee, try to torpedo and ram them, or you die. And that's pretty much what happens to the entire northern half of CaptainBluenose's team. They all just die one by one. Because, I mean, look at them. They're all running around there in that corner of the map. There's nowhere to go. They all, you know, go further and further toward the map border. just presenting, you know, their vulnerable sides to someone, and it's terrible. They're all getting mowed down. And in the meantime, CaptainBluenose and his teammates who spawned in the south are trying desperately to get into range to support them. Because that's the other thing. If you just keep retreating and the enemy keeps driving after you, it's practically impossible for your teammates to ever catch up and actually help you. So you're really just sitting there waiting to die, because by the time your teammates do get in range, you know, which is probably 12-15 minutes into the game, you are going to be very dead. And here's the Nagato again, once again presenting a wonderful broadside to CaptainBluenose and his buddies. And he is not ashamed to take full advantage of this and just absolutely destroy this silly tier 7 Japanese battleship. His buddies are also pouring a lot of fire into him, but just look at the juicy presentation of the Citadel and yep, there it is. Sooner or later, even the Tirpitz is going to hit a target presented like that. Right, they have taken out everything that remained on this flank, and now it's time to push forward. They are also losing very heavily on the cap. Apparently one of the destroyers must have snuck through the south and has capped the middle point, the C point, and is now also capping the E point where CaptainBluenose and his buddies spawned. However, there's not really much these guys can do about it, because now they are completely surrounded. They have to push for something. And they decide to just push toward the 2 remaining vessels on their team to maybe give them a little bit of support somehow. I mean, it was a costly push for the enemy team as well. They lost a couple of ships up there, but they absolutely destroyed everything in sight. It was really thanks to CaptainBluenose's team's carrier that the opposing team actually did pay so dearly for their pincer movement. This Independence, of course, has no chance whatsoever and gets taken out finally. Not entirely sure what an Independence is doing in a tier 8 game, but that's the World of Warships matchmaking for you. Now the situation is still very desperate. CaptainBluenose's team is going to have to capture some of these points. And that's going to be difficult because Hotspots is a very big map and it takes a long time to get to all of these cap zones. And there are a lot of ships now having destroyed everything that was remaining of the northern flank. Now they are all coming toward the remaining ships on our hero team. The first salvo from the North Carolina takes out one of the guns on CaptainBluenose's ship, but that is no matter, because at this kind of range you don't really hit anything with the Tirpitz. There is that sneaky little enemy destroyer hiding somewhere in those islands, but there he is, going for the middle point. But again, CaptainBluenose doesn't really have time for that. I mean, it's going to be hard to catch that destroyer anyway, and he's not really equipped to really deal with him. The Tirpitz isn't the best ship at dealing with destroyers, just because your rudder shift time is so incredibly slow that it's just, you're too sluggish. You know, if he fires torpedoes on you and is too close, it's over. And so it's much better to hand that role to somebody else. One of the cruisers can maybe deal with him. I mean, we still have a Cleveland, we have a Hatsuharu, they're all very much capable of dealing with a destroyer. CaptainBluenose instead takes on one of the battleships. The enemy team still having 3 battleships at almost full health. That is definitely something that requires the attention of someone that can deal with it. The enemy team is also very aggressively pushing forward. I mean, this North Carolina is so damn close. Basically engaging in melee combat with this friendly cruiser. in the Cleveland, Ravgana. But if he's that close, why not use the wonderful torpedoes on the Tirpitz? But using those torpedoes meant that CaptainBluenose had to expose a lot of his flank and took 2 Citadel hits. At least that's what it looked like. I think it was 2 Citadel hits. But he does get a bunch of torpedo hits on the guy and then finishes him off with a gun salvo. Wonderful. That makes us very happy because now now it looks a lot better actually. CaptainBluenose up to 3 kills, already having had 4 Citadel penetrations and a torpedo hit in his battleship. But there are still quite a few enemies to go. Pensacola setting him on fire. This Congo, it's the thing with battleships is I'm not a fan of the 3-tier matchmaking spread, as CaptainBluenose takes some aim at this Congo. I'm not a huge fan of it, but it is very much possible for a low-tier battleship like the Congo to do significant damage, and so playing the way CaptainBluenose is playing here is certainly very, very dangerous. Sadly, he didn't realize in time that the Congo was actually beaching itself, and so his salvo pretty much misses. He's presenting full broadside onto the Congo, which now fires and actually gets 1 or 2 Citadel hits on him and brings him down to like 20% of his hit points. That is not good, because now CaptainBluenose's team is down to 3 players. He gets 1 torpedo hit on the Congo and then shifts his fire toward the Miyoko, hoping that the flooding will finish off the Congo, which it actually does. But he's at such little health that it is going to be very difficult from here on out to win. Uses his repairability. Repairability on the Tirpitz, incredibly strong. Heals back up to 21,000 hit points. But this Miyoko is still a problem and still has to be dealt with. And there he gets a nice Citadel hit on the little bastard. This Miyoko, very, very silly, presenting way too much of his Citadel. I mean, don't get me wrong, you know, it's Japanese ships are very, very thinly armored no matter what you point at the enemy. But you also have a giant, vulnerable Citadel, and you do not want to point that at a battleship. That is a very, very bad idea. If he gets a good RNG on his ammunition spread, you are dead. And so this guy, very lucky that he's actually still alive. But there we see why he went full broadside, because he wanted to fire some torpedoes at CaptainBluenose. CaptainBluenose, of course, is a very experienced battleship captain, and as such, absolutely knows what to do. He constantly reduces and increases speed, constantly changes his course slightly, which just makes it very difficult to hit him at long ranges with torpedoes. Finally, the Miyoko burns to death, being shot by CaptainBluenose's friend, Lemming on Crack, in the other destroyer, but not before he set our intrepid hero on fire again, the little bastard. Now, it's actually looking good for CaptainBluenose's team again. The enemy team only left with 2 ships, and they sort of split up. Now this North Carolina is way, way ahead of the Pensacola, and the Pensacola decides to go the other direction. That is very, very bad form. No, not form. What am I talking about? It's a very, very bad strategy, very bad tactics, because when you're in a battle like this, I mean, especially now, the Pensacola is going like the other way, not even in gun range, can't fire at anyone. Well, he's in gun range, but it's just, don't do this, all right? Toward the end of the game, you really have to start working together with your teammates. I'm not asking for, you know, like the craziest communication in chat. Just try to stick together. Especially don't go in different directions. That's just such a bad idea. Because on the other hand, CaptainBluenose, Hellfire, and Lemming on Crack are all together. And now CaptainBluenose gets another 2 juicy Citadel hits on the North Carolina. And even with his little health points, he's still doing a ton of damage. and making it much more likely for his team to win. Our little buddy in the destroyer is still trying to get off some decent torpedoes against this North Carolina. And now he's taunting the North Carolina in chat, saying, "Over here! Shoot at me!" And now we don't even know where the Pensacola is. Either he tried to go long around the island, separating the D and... is it the C point? I think so. No, it's the B point. B and D. E and D. I think it's E and D. Damn it, these points are fucking terribly numbered. Or maybe he turned around and is going between the islands. We don't know at this point. We only know where the North Carolina is. But that is quite alright, because CaptainBluenose is still alive. He has done a lot of damage this game. 4 kills, 64 hits in a battleship. That is a lot of hits. That is a lot of gunfire. And 7 Citadel hits. Just very, very good. Much better at battleships than I am. It requires a lot of patience, and that is something I have to say I'm not so good at anymore. I used to have a lot more patience, but these days, because I have so little time for actual gaming, you know, when I spend 20 minutes on a game, I'm like, oh god, this takes way too long. What the fuck? You know, similar reasons why I can't play League of Legends or Dota, because, jeez, those games take 40 minutes to play, sometimes an hour. That's ridiculous. And now we see that the Pensacola actually did turn around, which kind of sucks for Hellfire in the North Carolina, because now he is completely out of gun range, but he's still trying to cap that point to make sure that we don't actually lose by cap. And gets a nice Citadel hit and a couple of more hits on the Pensacola, taking him down almost by half hit points. The Hellfire in the North Carolina trying his best to cut it as close to the island as possible to get into gun range, while the Pensacola is actually capping the C center point again. And here is where I totally disagree. If you're on 4,000 hit points and it's this close, you should not fire blindly. That was an entire salvo wasted. I mean, it was a tiny island. He would have been in view range again almost immediately. And so firing there was definitely a big mistake. But his buddy in the North Carolina gets around the island and gets a really nice hit on the Pensacola, taking him down to only 3,500 hit points. So just a few more points of damage, and sadly only gets 2 hits. There, that's the Tirpitz for you. But it's looking very good. If we can just get a few more hits on something, and there, Lemmy on Crack actually takes out the North Carolina with his torpedoes, and that should be it for the enemy team. They lost 100 points due to losing a battleship, and now CaptainBluenose, is he taking it? Ah! Sadly, no 5th kill for CaptainBluenose, but look at this! I took your feedback from last time to heart, and this time made sure that I had a score screen for us to look at. Now, I don't have a detailed score screen or anything like that, but hey, at least we can see that CaptainBluenose made 845,000 credits. Holy crap, that is a lot of cash. And I have to admit, that is something that I didn't find out while playing the Tirpitz, is that it actually does have a very high upper limit of what you can earn. If you manage to get a game like this with 4 kills, 8 Citadel hits, 71 hits in total, 2 torpedo hits, an incapacitation, and 3 battle heroes, high caliber, Confederate, and Dreadnought, then yes, you can make an absolutely absurd amount of experience and credits in this ship. But let's face it, for most of us mortals around 50% win rate, this is sort of a 1 in 10,000 kind kind of game. And as such, I'm still going to stick with it that the Murmansk is a slightly better premium ship just because it's easier to get good cash per game with it. However, CaptainBluenose, thank you very much for sending me this replay. It was a pleasure commentating it. It was wonderfully played. Alright guys, and that is it for this video. If you enjoyed this look at a subscriber replay, please consider liking and subscribing. And if you have any feedback, leave it in the comments. Does this replay change your opinion of the Tirpitz, or do you think that it's probably more of a rarity to see kind of game like that? Or have you already bought the Tirpitz and have you gotten crazy games like this as well? Let me know. And next in World of Warships, we are going to start looking at the replays that were sent in for the 2000 subscriber replay contest. And I can tell you, boy, were there some awesome replays in that lot. But until then, I've been the CloakingDonkey, and I'll see you in another video.